Your whole initiative is music to our ears. Like Steve Case has already been doing this, going to Kansas, bringing in there.
We know Steve Case very well. He was part of the effort to develop a startup with Warner and I.
And the black publishers are looking at doing an Sherman Antitrust Act against Facebook for the discrimination on market share because they colluded with the big publishers and ignored everybody else and then 90%. But with the opportunity zone investment, does it make any sense to put all your money into that one little overvalued basket when you have Wichita, Kickapoo, Baltimore?
One would think. Common sense would suggest.
And you're putting in the DOD appropriations to, and how much would that be effectively to sort of fund?
I don't know that number. I don't know.
But, and you can connect it to the Community Reinvestment Act too, so the banks who only give to those little guys in Silicon Valley and New York do not get the CRA credit, and those who give to Kickapoo or Wichita or rural America or Mississippi
You're
Delta.
singing my tune.
I know, thank you, sir. But the diversity is good business. Smart money is in diverse companies and diverse areas.
We're all taught that diversity helps us succeed. You don't put all eggs in one basket.
If you're not global, you're not.
Particularly in a time of national security issues.
Yeah.
We don't have everything in one place.
And we have the best market in the world right now. Thank you, sir.
Also on the Senate Aerospace and NIH caucuses. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here. Thank you for the attendance here today. Your report has obviously captured people's attention. We were perceptive enough to plan this competitive caucus in advance of the report, not knowing exactly what you'd say, but this was perfect timing from my perspective. And it is, let me just speak for a moment. First of all, I need to say something nice about Chris, maybe 3 or 4 times. I would do that. Oh, yes. I really would wait.
Anything nice, anything.
It is, I would say this with all sincerity, it is so much of a pleasure to work with Chris, both as someone who knows policy, is committed to policy, but somebody who just genuinely is a nice and gracious person and shares my view that one of the best things we could do to the United States Congress, the United States Senate, and the American people is actually have a United States Senate and the United States Congress that works, accomplishes things. It's nice sometimes to be applauded for our efforts, but I would much prefer to be applauded for our successes, for the results that those efforts are designed to attain. And anytime you can find colleagues who are interested in results as compared to headlines, incidentally headlines, many of us wish we could figure out how to be in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post within a matter of 2 days and not say something on Twitter or be convicted of a crime. You've accomplished a lot of attention. That's next. All right. Just on a personal level, I want to accomplish something for my state, and yes, perhaps it's related to being a member of Congress, of the United States Senate, but just a desire, as our state is a manufacturing place, we manufacture lots of airplanes, agricultural equipment, we manufacture, we're an ag state, we produce lots of commodities that are important to us in a global economy. We are an energy state, producing lots of energy. We've become a part of it, we think of that as oil and gas, and that's true, but we've become a wind producer. We have lots of basic components of an economy, but my personal goal is to do everything I can to see that there is an additional component to our state's economy, and that is related to STEM. That is students, individuals, Kansas citizens, and others who would come to Kansas would find a place where not only we educate young men and women in science, mathematics, engineering, and research, but we have careers that then follow that opportunity. And those things this report indicates, despite our efforts, are not happening to the degree that they are happening elsewhere. That if you start off well in this arena, you have a much better chance of continuing to grow than if you were starting off someplace less than that and trying to grow. And so, what I also appreciate about this report is that it not only highlights the challenge, the problem, which is what many times we hear in discourse with our constituents, they tell us what is wrong. It is useful to have someone who tells us what is the roadmap that might make what is wrong right. And so this is of value to me. It's, again, a very personal goal on my part to try to change the nature of at least a component of our state's economy. So I'm very grateful to them for their work and for their presence with us today. And I look forward to following up with you. I'd like to spend and give our colleagues some additional time to spend time with you to see if we can generate additional support. I just want to mention a couple of things that I think are good news. I mentioned the importance of a STEM workforce. We have lots of places in Kansas that we think present those opportunities, but we as a state, we as a country need to develop a highly skilled labor pool. In my time in public service, I've seen so many instances in which our attempts to recruit business and industry revolve about infrastructure, not unimportant, but it is an investment in plant and equipment. And while that remains important, the inducement to get somebody to come or to stay, my view is it is the workforce. So we ought to be investing in people to a much higher degree than we invest in buildings. And a property tax abatement might be valuable in that final thing that brings a business to us or retains a business to us. But in my view, it's not the thing that makes the difference. It may make a difference, but it's not the compelling thing that gets somebody's attention. I've always believed if you have the best educated, highly trained workforce, businesses will find you. It is the greatest challenge we face in business today, and that involves competitiveness in a global economy, is the workforce that is skilled and motivated to do great things. We've worked hard in a number of instances, but particularly with Wichita State University in the aerospace industry. Again, one of those cities that's sometimes mentioned in your report and mentioned in the press reports as a place that has potential, but not to the degree that the 5 locations that are succeeding so well have. And so a partnership between Wichita State University and the aerospace industry is something that is, we think, changing the nature of that community. And it involves research and education of students, internships, and we want to make certain that that education then is utilized in the industries that we have in our state and to bring others in. So I also would point out that one of the things that we're working on, we've been successful as Republicans and Democrats in the Congress in increasing the significant amount of dollars available for research at NIH, the National Institute of Health. But there are so many additional research entities that could use that kind of boost. The one I'm most focused on is NSF. I chair the appropriations subcommittee that funds NSF, and we want to make certain that we also share in that increasing commitment toward basic and applied research that can help change the world. So NSF is receiving, if we ever, for next week when we have the appropriation bill on the floor, you'll see what we were able to do to improve NSF, and our own bill, the Senate bill that is public. We were successful in a $242 million increase in NSF funding for FY20. Thank you. You're welcome. I knew there was an applause line for at least one person in the room. The report discusses the need to empower people from all over the world to work in America by reforming our H-1B and other necessary visa programs. Senator Coons and I, but Senator Warner and I in particular, have been long engaged in something called the Startup Act, for which we're now on about version number 4 or 5. It is a challenge because it involves immigration policy, which makes it very difficult. It's a package to accomplish a wide array of things, but to encourage entrepreneurial visas, to encourage STEM visas, increase for the folks who find America the place at which they can pursue the American dream, and in the process of that American dream put other people, particularly Americans, to work. The Kauffman Foundation, Kauffman used to own the Royals. Upon his death, he left his money to a foundation that promotes entrepreneurship, and their findings indicate that 39% of PhDs are a result of temporary visas, meaning that we get talent and skills. We certainly need to educate our own, but the number of engineers and others that we need in our country's economy, it will not be fulfilled in the short term by simply looking internally. So we need to increase the number of folks in the STEM education, something I think we all know. The Startup Act, if your members, if your senators have any interest in our efforts to jumpstart innovation please take a look at that legislation. Senator Warner on the Democrat side and me on the Republican side are working to try to make certain we advance the cause of entrepreneurship. I also would finally conclude to Pete to express my pleasure that the Economic Development Administration, EDA's Regional Innovation Strategic Program is something that Chris mentioned. Our CGS bill in the Senate, and again, increases another $31 million, provides $31 million.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Mark. And thanks to all of you for giving me a brief, bipartisan, encouraging respite from an interminable hearing that I am currently enjoying. The Judiciary Committee began at 10 a.m. this morning, and if it concludes by 3, I will be delighted. And while I understand that oversight is an important part of our role, it is just a sharply divided partisan exercise. This is the opposite, and so that's all I'm saying is that it's delightful to have a chance to join again with my dear friend and colleague, Senator Moran of Kansas, in looking at what are the things we should be doing to strengthen our economy and our society, and as the caucus title suggests, to make us more competitive globally. We focused on some core issues like research and development, advanced manufacturing, infrastructure, workforce training, and this report hits on all of those notes. And since he wasn't here to hear me say it, I'm going to say it again. It is a delight and a joy and an honor to be joined by my co-chair, Jerry Moran of Kansas, who has made
If I step out and come back in, would you say it again?
It is a delight to be joined by my friend and co-chair, Jerry Moran of Kansas, who continues to make service here, not just something I endure, but something I enjoy. So, Jerry, thank you again for being a great co-chair. I was talking briefly about what the Competitiveness Caucus has focused on and how the report that is the principal focus today touches on all of these issues. Briefly, one statistic from this report on tech hubs across the country is particularly stunning. Between San Diego, Seattle, the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Boston, that accounts for 90%, just those 4 geographic areas, 90% of our nation's innovation sector growth from 2005 to 2017. And as senators who are from some areas that are not among those 4 areas, I think our principal question is, how do we get some of that? Concentration of investment and innovation in just a few technology hubs is a market failure and bad for the vast majority of the American people. Americans outside of the highest performing, highest concentration tech hubs have less opportunity. And those who are living in and around these tech hubs, frankly, are worse off because they have less of affordable housing accessible to them. They have some of the worst commutes in the country. While they may have a lot of opportunity, day in and day out, the experience of living in incredibly concentrated high-growth tech hubs isn't always pleasant. I'm tempted to ask for a show of hands of how many of you enjoy your daily commute here in Washington. I suspect I won't be overwhelmed with highly rated. You enjoy your daily
10 minutes to get here. I'm in Northeast D.C.
In Northeast D.C. What
Brooklyn.
am I whining about? I don't know. I'm the idiot who commutes from Delaware, right? I mean, it's by choice. I do also believe that when companies focus on just a few highly concentrated tech hubs, they're missing out because genius is evenly distributed across the human population and across our nation. And instead of requiring folks to move to these few concentrated hubs, our hope is to distribute some of this opportunity across the country. Wilmington, I would argue, which has a long tradition of manufacturing and of industry and of innovation, has a great deal of opportunity, and we'd like to do things to make access to credit, access to investment, access to capital, and access to a high-skilled workforce a reality. There are several ways in which Rob and Mark's detailed proposals in this report, spreading tech hubs to more of America, would build upon our bipartisan work in the Competitiveness Caucus. 2 of the bills that we've been working on are poised to become law in this year's Defense Authorization Act. The Global Leadership and Advanced Manufacturing Act is paired in the NDAA with Senator Moran's bill to reauthorize and expand the highly effective Regional Innovation Program. And as this report makes clear, there's other areas of federal policy that can help to spread opportunity and high-tech jobs more evenly. One that I'm excited to work on in the near future, hopefully with Senator Moran, is access to capital. I will be introducing a bill soon with colleagues to establish a federal-state partnership to spread venture capital, not just geographically, but also to a more diverse group of entrepreneurs. I'm also a believer in the importance of the R&D tax credit. In the years since we've made it permanent, I think it has become a more powerful tool, and I think we can do things to make it a smarter and more effective investment in attracting private capital. An idea that I'm interested in this report is a human capital tax credit to encourage more robust investment in the high-tech workforce. So this is an exciting proposal. It addresses several related problems at once. Targeted investment in the most promising regions can spark lasting change, not just for local economies, but for our competitiveness as a nation. So if you're here because you're interested in policy or you're a policymaker, get your pencils out. I've heard these guys speak many times, and they know their business, and I know you will hear a remarkable roadmap for strengthening our nation and its competitiveness. Let me close by saying what a joy and a delight it is to be joined by my Competitiveness Caucus co-chair, Senator